Welcome back for another edition of Life Journey with Dr. Ralph Smith. And of course, if this isn't the first show you've seen, I'm Dr. Ralph Smith. Folks, we talk about a lot of issues in past shows, some of which are very emotional, others which are more informative, and others that you might have to go and get a second bowl of popcorn. But the bottom line is, each of these shows touch people in different ways. And to me, counseling is one of the most important elements of mental wellness. Now, we do not do counseling at Jenny Marie Wellness. We basically have educational programs that we do. We do a lot of that for court-ordered folks. We also do some life coaching, which people say, well, that's counseling, doc. No, it's not. It's a way just to guide somebody. You write a life plan, and you guide people toward their goal. But they take primarily most of the responsibility. But every once in a while, we end up in a situation where we need the talented, aspects of a professional. When I say talented aspects, I know you have family members who are very loving and they can say, well, we can help you, but how much can you tell them? Will it be kept confidential? Probably not. So when you go to a professional counselor, somebody who deals with a lot of different problems, who's not only has the education to help you, but has what we call street smarts and know how to deal with people, those are very valuable people, and they should be a valuable part of your life, because every one of us can run into problems where we need some counseling. So this show is called Counseling Connection. We're going to visit with a good friend of ours, Nate Maxwell, and he's going to talk a little bit about his background with you, and then we're going to talk about some basic counseling needs. But if you're back there shaking your head and saying, I don't need to watch this, I don't have any problems, then let me give you an analogy that hits home for you. Everybody who drives a car knows that whenever we go in to have our oil changed, that people will go and say, well, our mechanics will say, well, you need to go 3,000 miles or 4,000 miles, but you need to change it. You need to change your filter so that you don't burn out your engine. Because if you don't do the oil change, which is one of the most important things you can do for a car, that engine's going to go. And when it goes, you're talking about $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. Let alone you start thinking about the transmission. Your human body, especially your emotional, whether it be psychological or psychiatric issues you need to address, but with a good counselor who cares about you, that trusts in you, you trust in that counselor and you respect that counselor, and I don't really care how many letters are behind his name or her name, is a valuable advisor that can keep you on the track. So consider it a little bit of an investment in doing an oil change in your car. You won't hesitate for a moment to do an oil change in your car. You won't hesitate to change the plugs, change the coolant. And yet some people have a direct relationship with mental wellness, mental health, to thinking, well, people think I'm crazy. No, people don't think you're crazy. They think you just need that extra set of hands and that extra heart that cares about you, that give you guidance, and hopefully help you avoid making any major mistakes in your life, because we all make them. So that's what Counseling Connection is about today, and we're honored to have Nate be here. Just kind of give us a little nudge and get us some information. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, I'm going to introduce you to Nate. We're going to talk a little bit about him, and then talk about some general counseling issues that could be beneficial not only to you, but your family needs. And when I say family needs, we're talking about you. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back after that short break. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce Nate Maxwell. And Nate's going to talk a little bit about his background and some of the things he does. And then we're going to get into some subject matter that hopefully you'll find useful to you. One of the things I want to mention to you is that if you ever have questions or there's things you'd like us to discuss on Life's Journey, or if you have an issue that you'd like our help on, it's really simple. All you have to do is Google search either Dr. Ralph Smith, and that's R-A-L-P-H. And when you Google search me, I'm up on the first page, which is awfully nice, considering there's about 3 million entries on Smith. Or you can actually go ahead and Google search the Jenny Marie Wellness Center. So in other words, it's Jenny Marie Wellness, and the Jenny is spelled G-I-N-N-Y. Okay? And then you can do either one, and that is the same with all the other search engines. You can find us, it'll hook you up on our website, and feel free to contribute your thoughts and comments. First of all, Nate, welcome aboard again.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for, on behalf of the company and myself. You did our first show, and it was outstanding, by the way. And I'm sure the folks are going to get a lot of good use out of that. And then you welcomed us back in your office again for a second show, and you didn't have me contact as agent or anything that you may have. So when you don't hire an agent, that means we still get you at that great value we get you at right now, which is free.
Yeah.
But we sure love you being part of us and joining our show, and we look forward to your future appearances too, as your time permits, because I know you're a busy guy. We talk about counseling, and it's kind of generic in a sense. As you know, mental wellness and obviously issues dealing with the mind, there's different people categorized. You got psychiatrists, you got psychologists, you got all these different folks that have all these different titles. And I joke about it, and it's not meant to be disrespectful, but there's a lot of people that go through their careers earning all those letters behind their name. And when I was in the business world, before I, obviously started Worldwide Concepts and Alpine, I used to always joke about the fact that whenever I got a job title in the corporate world, I wanted to make sure that it was shorter than my name, because I didn't want to appear to be pompous. Well, the problem with that is a name of Dr. Ralph Smith, you can't have much of a job title except manager. So I never got that dream. But putting letters behind a name is very important, because I know how hard you folks work to earn those letters and the accreditation that goes with them. So why don't you talk briefly about yourself and what experience you have, and then we'll just jump into the subject at hand, which is our counseling connection.
All right. So I got a BS in psychology back in North Dakota, Dickinson State, and through that process I was working as a caregiver, and I worked with developmentally disabled, and I worked with somebody that was autistic, Down syndrome, and then dementia and Alzheimer's, et cetera, et cetera. And it was fascinating to me as when I met with the autistic client in particular, he was meeting with a psychologist, and the psychologist was missing the beat of what I thought was going on. He wasn't diagnosed with autism at the time, and I actually helped him guide that process and was able to get that young man a diagnosis, and that really changed and impacted his care. So that was the beginning of the inklings that I wanted to do more in this field. And then fast forward, moved out here, and I started as a caregiver, and I saw a lot of the needs in the home being met for like food and shopping and cleaning of the house. But the mental needs were not getting met, and a lot of these people were very lonely and depressed, and some of them agoraphobic even, and not leaving their homes. So that was another gap that I wanted to fulfill. So I went back to school, got my master's in psychology from Argosy, Seattle. And in that process, I interned at Jefferson Mental Health, which is now Discovery Behavioral Health, and ended up, after finishing my internship, they offered me a job running their day treatment program called Harbor House. And I worked with severely mentally ill in that program that were schizophrenic, schizoaffective, bipolar, borderline, et cetera, et cetera. Some were very high functioning and some weren't. Some were homeless and some were just in that transition. Through that process, you learn a lot of different skills sets with, because I didn't have, because of it's a small rural area, I couldn't just specifically, okay, I'm going to have a schizoaffective group. I mean, it was just a mosh podge of a bunch of different people daily. So I had to adjust my therapeutic skills in the groups throughout the week according to what the group was feeling, and I developed a lot of skills through that. So now I would define my counseling style as eclectic. I try to tailor it to the client's needs and personality. Some people come up to you like, don't give me that family nonsense. I don't want to know about mom, dad, and what mom and dad did wrong. And so right away, my brain's going, all right, let's go to solution focused and say, let's handle why you're here and look forward instead of going back. And then there's some people that want to tease out, why did my mom do that? Why did my dad do that? And so then I'll go back and let's do some psychotherapy. Then let's really dig in deep, and maybe even have them do a genogram to see their whole family if that's their interest. Right. So again, I'm eclectic in the style, and I try to tailor the therapy according to the personality needs of that individual, and of course their presenting problem, whatever that may be, depression, anxiety, PTSD, etc., etc.
Well, in our profession, and you're well aware of this, and for our audience it's even more important, but there's this stigma. And by the way, it hasn't changed. I've been practicing 25, 30 years. Jenny Marie's been over 10 years in existence. But there's a stigma that if people ask for help, that they are a little hesitant to do so. Of course, if you're court ordered, you don't have a choice. But if they're hesitant to do so because they think, well, people think I'm crazy. Or like when I remember early in my career, I'd have, patients come in whom I really didn't know well, obviously. I hadn't even done an intake on them. They say, doc, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. And there's a defensive error that you got to work through.
Yeah.
And I always tell those same patients, and I tell them now as I head for the pastor land in my career, I tell them, if you had cancer, or if you had heart disease, or you had some other type of quote, medical function that was challenged or that you were a survivor of, I said, you wouldn't hesitate to talk to people about it. Like myself, I'm a stroke survivor, and I'm proud of that. And I hope to share my word with other people, not to show my weaknesses. It's not a weakness for whatever reason, that stroke hit that we just talked about earlier. But the fact of giving people hope and saying, it strikes all of us. And I try to explain to this the fact, and I imagine you do the same thing, I don't know you as well as I plan to, but that a lot of our experience we get is not from all those books and all those degrees and all those things, but is working with people, and as I call it, street smarts. And to do what we do, you have to love people. You want to help people. You're not always going to be like Dr. Phil and make millions and millions of dollars and have Oprah Winfrey discover you and put you on her show and then have all the success that Dr. Phil had, and I'm not taking that away from you. But for most of us who, quote, work in the trenches and help people, our blessings is not the money we make, because it's not as much as people think, but it's the fact that we get people to survive and they live a better life.
Yeah.
And that's what I refer to, without getting spiritual, as making our trip to heaven on good deeds instead of how often we appear at church. That's another subject. But here's the problem that I'd like you to discuss with our audience. When do you know, as far as a potential patient or a client, that you need counseling? What are the telltale signs of things that if you're starting to notice hitting you, that's telling you either indirectly or directly, I probably need to go see somebody? Can you share those with me?
Well, there's a lot of things. First off, you want to rule out medical. Like, if you're not getting up in the morning and you're just feeling drained, you're sleeping too much or not sleeping at all, weight loss and all, first you want to rule out the medical issues. Okay. And if your doctor's saying there's nothing wrong, then it's and there's a possibility that it might be something that's holding back mentally, then that's one indication. Come talk to a counselor. And then there's other indications of just the sense of a fog. Some people describe, I feel like I'm in a fog now. I'm not my same person like I was. And that can be a variety of things. It could have been trauma. It could have been situational change. It could have moved. Could have had a family member move away, a good friend. So it's situational too. So that's where you can kind of guide at first, but you want to really rule out the medical possibilities, because there is a lot of physical stuff that can be caused because of depression and anxiety, and some people will even have with anxiety that physical sensation of their heart beating out of their chest in certain areas. Well, that could be something else going on, so AFib could be a possibility, and so get that ruled out first, and then if the doctor's saying, I can't find anything wrong, let's work on certain techniques to calm yourself so the heart doesn't race, and you can handle those situations, and finding those triggers that cause that anxiety to increase, and maybe working and teasing that out, and it will not only impact you feel you're limited in your life is another reason people come into counseling. I feel like I'm not quite to that percentage that I feel like it could be as a person. And that's another possibility for needing counseling, is feeling stuck and want to move forward in life. And so there's a lot of variety. So there's not one telltale, because everybody's so different, and there's 146 forms of therapy out there that is registered. That's the last time I checked. There might be more by now,
Right.
So that just speaks loads that people are different, their personalities are different, their perspectives are different, their history, culture, on and on. So why wouldn't there be a lot of different forms of therapy out there? So I try to, with my own therapy, is I'm eclectic, like I mentioned, and I try to do person-centered and allow. I think I mentioned this in the last time we met, is that I'm in the passenger seat of the car. They're in the driver's seat. I have a map. Let's see this is where I know you should be getting. There's going to be detours, there's going to be accidents, things happen, things come up, things change. But ultimately, I'll get you where you're going if you're willing. you're in charge. You choose which direction to go. You can go as fast and as slow. You can stop, etc. So giving that person power and understanding that it isn't a scary process. It can be emotional. It's a roller coaster, sure, of emotions. But teasing out those emotions feels so good. You lose that sense of weight on your shoulders after figuring out where the grief or why the grief is continuing, or why the anxiety is coming, and the night terrors and all that start going away. It's amazing to see that process for people.
You know, I used to compare it, of course, this marks my elderly position in life right now, but I used to compare it to a pressure cooker. It's amazing what you find in a pressure cooker as it builds up pressure to cook whatever's cooking, that if you slowly let that pressure out, you see the steam and you see the vapor per se, of how much better you feel, not only that you're safe, but how good that food's going to taste.
Yeah.
Well, taking care of psychological needs is a lot like that. You know, I'm surprised there's only 146 disciplines. I'm sure there's a lot more than that. But sometimes it takes a team approach. And unfortunately, in this case, in psychological terms, and psychiatry would also go along in that same vein, our body has all these defense mechanisms that are built up. We have our conscious mind, which is the mind that we make decisions and we view this, we view that. And it's pretty automatic generally, and then we have that subconscious. And it's what I refer to as the big sponge. And that big sponge collects information from the time you're born till, quite frankly, to the time you die.
Yeah.
And that sponge is gathering information. It's like brain cells. People say, well, when people use drugs, they're brain dead. Well, not necessarily. We're born with a lot of brain cells, thank God. But after a while, you do kill enough brain cells that it does affect you.
Yeah.
Well, the subconscious the same way, but the problem with the subconscious is managing that's very difficult. As you know, dreams and people sleep, that subconscious is feeling that.
Yeah.
So people say they have problems sleeping, doc. I say, well, what do you got going on? What's the deals that are creating your mind where you can't rest and fall asleep? I get an explanation. I'm sure you've run it into your clients this way too, Nate, where they say, I just can't turn my mind off. I go to bed, I just can't turn my mind off.
Yeah.
And it affects them sexually too, which will be another show we can do, and that'll be a lot of fun. But the bottom line is it affects everything you do in life, because your body builds mechanisms that basically try to cut it short and, in a sense, not make you aware of it. But on the other hand, you've got your ego involved. Well, I can handle anything. Yeah. What'll shock people, it won't shock you because you're a professional. One of the highest divorce rates are, of course, firemen and policemen. Nothing new there. The second highest rate, psychiatrists and psychologists. Yeah. And the top 5 groups that are prone for suicide, psychologists and psychiatrists, because we're taught to interpret everything, but we have the same problem. We go home at night, we got to flush that, because it's bad enough when we bring our problems home to our wife and to our families, but if we bring all of our patients and clients too, there is no rest to that. Which leads to my second question. No matter what letters you have in front or back of your name, no matter how well qualified you are, and people watching this show now and say, boy, I want to give that guy a call, and we'll have your number on our website so they can get hold of you. But the bottom line is there's this certain element that calls earning their trust and respect. And I did an involuntary commit this week. I've only done less than 5 of them in 30 years. But this was, and I can't discuss the name obviously, but because of HIPAA regulations, but this was a commit that I finally realized I'd done everything I could. I had to call in for medical intervention, and all the competition is between psychiatrists and psychologists. How many people walk to my office thinking I could just write script for them, and that's all they're for, and say, no, that's something I don't do, and they get all upset and leave. But I had to call in for the help, and then we had to even go beyond that because the resources out here in the Olympic Peninsula is a little bit limited. And actually I felt good when that commitment was done, because I was placing that individual in a place that they could give him a lot of help. They could do some evals that otherwise I wasn't either qualified to do or able to do. And I wanted to really make his life better so he could recover and live a good life. Mm-hmm. So that begs the question, how do you earn their respect? How do you earn their trust? I mean, they may come in here to your office based on a referral or somebody had a good experience to you. They may have it because you belong to an association or they saw those letters behind your name. But after you're past that point where the door opens, you're sitting there one-on-one like me and you right now, you got to earn that trust, that belief. How do you do it?
Well, for me, I like to start with the sessions to tell them the foundation of everything we're doing is confidentiality, and I feel like if they have an understanding that I'm going to hold their secrets and they're not going to go to other people, then that is an empowering feeling that they can unload these issues. I even sometimes will take an example when they're trying to get you to own their problems, and you're like, you're trying to give me your problems. And then I'll sometimes will take an object. I mean, here's your problems. We're gonna put it in the middle.
Right.
Let's look at it and work on it together. So that basic foundation of it's got to be confidential. Understand that that's the foundation of where I start. That they know it's not going anywhere here.
Excellent.
That's a really comforting feeling to some people that I can really just unload on this guy and he's not going to tell anybody. So my job's to hold secrets. That's another way I really like to present it to people. That's my job. It's not going to go anywhere. So that trust begins, and you won't really, some people it takes about, as you know, 3-4 sessions before they're like, okay, this guy can handle this, and then they'll be able to unload. It all depends on...
And it's like a light going off. You'll notice that when they ask you questions, they're looking for reinforcement in their decisions rather than just casual interest. They don't know they're doing that, and again, faces change, names change, and the years go rather quickly, as you're about to find out. But the bottom line is you know then that you have them. But that doesn't eliminate one of the major problems that I still deal with today after many years, and I know that you probably deal with, and that's the issue of denial. Denial and the fact that people will deny what a problem is and not even open their mind to hearing what you have to say. Denial by family members saying, oh really, we don't have a problem, our marriage is great, and you know it's not.
Yeah.
Basic question. How do you get around that denial factor? Because I fight that all the time.
I use motivational interviewing, asking questions in such a way that eventually they come to the conclusion themselves that this is a problem, and doing it in such a way that they again come to the conclusion, not me pointing the finger, this is your problem. Instead of that feeling of guilt, if they feel empowered, oh, this is the problem that I can work on. And then separating and looking at the problem as another element that's not part of it. That's another aspect that I really try to focus on, especially with addiction. They really feel like I've been doing this for so long, it's in essence theirs. And if you can really look at the problem as something else other than them, and that they are a good person, it's really empowering and helpful for that healing process to go through for them.
Those folks out there are watching us, and all of them have different challenges. We don't like using the word problems. That's a no-no in our books, of course. But different challenges. What have you found in the experience you've had, whether it was up in the Dakotas, which is a nice area, but I'm sure glad you live here in Palencia because it's beautiful here. A lot of wonderful people too. But what are the one or two maybe toughest challenges you face or your patients or clients face that you feel that need a special attention? So if somebody's watching this show right now, Nate, it would be a kneel down type of moment and saying, you know what, I know this is wrong, can you help me? And that to me what I refer to as a kneel down moment. And it's generated by the patient or the client. It's not you, because you're constantly receptive like this. But it's that moment when they really want their help. Can you name one? No names, we don't want to lose licenses here. But name one or two conditions that you sense come up quite often so the people out there who are watching the show can relate to it.
I feel like with most diagnoses, they all come to that point, and that's the goal of my therapy, is to instill hope. And so at the point that they understand that I'm giving them hope, a lot of the time they're able to, I can do this now. It's that feeling of there's a light at the end of this dark tunnel I'm in, and this is the guy that's going to help me get through it. And that's usually where I go. I can't think of any specifics because I feel like that's just the part of the process.
Right.
And it's ingrained into.
So it's getting the search to that point,
yeah,
and then coming up with possible solutions or recommendations.
Right. And motivational interviewing, like I mentioned before, is a really good way of doing that. If they're into journaling, writing, narrative therapy is another good way. Again, there's a lot of different avenues you can take depending on the personality traits of the person and the issue that they're dealing with.
This is going to sound corny, but we're kind of casual here on this show, so I'm going to run this back by you. When I talk about, Nate, the kneel down approach, that to me, when it happens to me, I can pick on it pretty quickly because, again, the faces change, the names change, but there's a lot of similarities. But the next best moment I tell people, and they look at me really bizarre, is that, you know, when the day comes that you fire me and you're living a better life, I look forward to that day.
Yeah.
Not that you will ever not come back to me or hit a dip in the road where you need help, but when you fire me, that to me is a good thing. And it doesn't matter who it is, their income brackets, orientation, their presence in life, they give you that stunned look. But they don't understand that it is like that oil change, and I always go back to that example, where when you change that oil, you've given them another 3,000 miles, and they might have some trouble with the engine, and when they come back to you, you may not be able to help them, but you can refer them to somebody. Yeah. Life is the same way. And we're here such a short period of time. Some of us might live to be 100, but most of us won't quite make that threshold. Why not enjoy the life you have? I can't relive yesterday. I can live today, and I can look forward to tomorrow. And that's why we've got to get people to look at things. So with that in mind, and my final question of the day is simply this. What can those folks do who want to see you, and again, we'll have your name and the credits at the end and also on our website. What can these people do to prepare for a session with you? Because it costs money to talk to you, it costs money to talk to me, and I've always found the better prepared they are, the more we can get to the meat of the issue. What are some things that you can share with our audience today that would indicate to them the things they should have ready? And I don't mean just the insurance card, I'm talking about the good stuff of making them live a better life.
Well, I have a pretty detailed intake, and I don't charge for the intake.
Excellent.
I usually just meet with people, so I want them to feel that we're a good match. If they're not feeling it, why charge them for something?
But that takes away one of the excuses, because I'm sure they're at the kitchen table and they're watching this show and say, yeah, I wonder how much this is going to cost me. Okay, that's off the table. That excuse is gone. So that's a good thing, and thank you for mentioning that. A lot of folks don't do that. That means you're doing it with this, and that's good. But tell me the couple things maybe, or things they should do to prepare for that first sit down with you. I know you have your forms, and we all do our surveys, but the bottom line is, what are the type of things they can bring into that first meeting so you can plug in rather quickly?
One of the questions I asked for Zane is, what do you want to get out of this? And I use solution focused in that moment. If I could just give you a magical wand, poof, and your life is what you expected, and then it's exactly like, boom, it's what you want. What is that like? And then it's very powerful for them to be able to, oh yeah, well, I wish my life was like this, and they start able, so where do you want to be? And the next thing is, what is holding you back? And if you are unable to answer those questions, then that's a good thing you're coming to me, because I'm definitely going to help you find that direction. That's this part of the process. So being open to the idea that I will instill hope and you will get better, that's basically all I want you to come in with, is that feeling that it's going to happen.
And being relaxed, telling the truth. I always tell folks, and I'm sure you do the same thing in a different way. We use different words and different terms, but if you're going to lie to me, you're wasting my time. And I got other people that need my help. So you got to tell me the truth, no matter how ugly it is. I got to know the truth, and then you're always going to get the truth out of me. And if I feel you're facing some severe issues, or we need to go see a psychiatrist together and get you some med support or whatever, I will always tell you the truth. I will never lie to you. And that's really, really important. But what's really neat is for people to realize, and I'll talk more about it in my game plan here in the final segment, but that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. In fact, what it really means is you care so much that you want to find the path to happiness. You want so much to be a happier, more approachable person. You care so much about your relationships, whether it be work relationships, family relationships, your relationship with God, for example, whatever it is, that you want to put yourself and in your heart in the best possible light. And sometimes we just can't do that by ourselves. And that's what we have folks like Nate for.
Okay. It's good. Outside perspective is very helpful. You can ask your friends, you can ask your family, but they're in the situation 9 times out of 10 with you, so they can't give you that outside perspective of saying maybe.
Well, they have to worry about it might hurt your feelings, it might affect the relationship, and we both approach it on the basis that when we succeed together, working with our patients and clients, we have a big win we celebrate, and being fired is just merely another inning in the ball game, and sooner or later they'll come back and feel comfortable coming back.
Absolutely.
Hey, that's cool. That's what we live for. You're a good soul. Thank you, sir.
Thank
and you make sure you come back and see us some more. Because I might want to take a vacation to San Diego and have you sit in the dock chair, okay?
You're fine.
All righty. And Sean will pay you as much as he pays me. Nothing. Thanks, my friend.
Thank you.
Folks, let's go ahead and take another break. When we get back, of course, it's a segment of the program everybody looks forward to, the game plan. We'll be right back. Welcome back into our game plan segment of our program. We had just an exciting visit with Nate, and if you didn't have a chance to catch the whole program, you can go visit our website, the website at PAPA, which is of course Muncie Area Public Access, which is our good friends there, and take a look at these shows. Sometimes you need to go through them 2 or 3 times, but the best thing you can do for Nate and I both is to actually have a family member or friend and say, I really wish they could see that show because I think it'll help them. And Nate and I will thank you in advance for doing that. The game plan. You don't have to admit that there's something wrong with you. That's not even the issue. You don't even have to think about the fact that maybe you're not mentally well or that people say you're crazy. None of that applies to the show. What this applies to the show is one basic, simple rule. And this is what applies. And this is your game plan. Are you really happy in life? Do you feel like you're living life to its fullest? Are you able to enjoy your victories as well as dwell in your defeats? Are you able to, every time you see your family members or your friends, to be able to give them a good hug and be genuine about the fact you're glad to see them? And then the final part of that whole qualifier is when you get up in the morning and you realize you got to make money, you got to do all these different responsibilities. When your feet first hit the floor, are you grateful to God that you have another day to build your legacy? Well, if the answer to that is yes, then this is really an easy game plan for you to follow. When you feel that you're a little sluggish, or I love Nate's term, in a fog. I've never heard that before, and that's outstanding. I might try to sneak in and use that in the book, in my last book, and give him credit for it, because that's a great way to put it. Look around and try to get some help. If you have mental health providers that all they want to do is charge you just to talk to you, you're wasting your time. Go on to somebody else. Because there's folks like Nate, myself, and many others who want you to get to know them, be comfortable with them. It's like interviewing for an insurance agent or a realtor. And then be able to feel like they can sit down and work out their issues or their challenges with that person. It's not all about the money, and most of us, we don't want to admit it, but we'll work with people. So it's not really, if we're driven by money, we're in the wrong profession and need to go to work for the government or get a fancy title somewhere. But the bottom line is we're here to help you. When we have folks that are severely challenged and we can show them that light, it is really like a light in a tunnel, and they go forward. One of the hardest things I have to deal with every week almost here in Port Angeles is that phone call that comes from the police department or the fire department saying they have somebody ready to jump off one of our 2 bridges. And knowing that by the time I get there, will I be able to save that person and be able to give them yet another opportunity at life. And sometimes I don't make it in time. And I've lost 4 in my entire career. And let me tell you, I think about all 4 of those, what I could have done. What if, what of, and you just can't go there. It'll just drive you absolutely crazy. So here's the game plan. Talk about your life with your significant other. Make sure that significant other is good in their relationship with you, as good as you are. And if there's any problems there, that's the first place to start. Second place to start, if you happen to be blessed with children, and that could either be your children or somebody else's children perhaps that you're taking care of from previous relationships, or your grandkids, don't forget those grandkids, and you feel that there's just something wrong there. It could be suspected drug use. Here in the state of Washington, marijuana is legal for 21 and over only, and sometimes people get a little carried away with that when it's legal. So take a look if they have some serious drug issues. And then we'll go ahead and look Nate up, or look at somebody like us up in whatever community you may watch this show, because this is worldwide on the YouTube program or channel. Get the help up front. I can tell you, and even though I didn't ask Nate this question, and perhaps I should have, that we like to get in the front end of issues instead of the back end. Because when we're in the back end, it's like following a parade, and the elephants are the last thing in the parade, and you know what you're doing. You've got a broom and a pan to pick up their deposits, okay? We'd rather be in the front end. So give that some serious thought when you're around the kitchen table and you've got your family members there, or maybe even a reunion or Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever way you get together. A lot of people on July 4th holidays, Memorial Day holidays, they have the reunions. And really listen. If you find yourself talking more than you're listening, then you're not doing your job, quite frankly. Listen. And if there's anybody that needs help, you can refer to our program, our website, as I mentioned before, jennymwellness.com, and just simply say, hey, I need some help. And I don't care if you live in the Dakotas or you live in the farthest reaches of Alaska. It doesn't matter to me. You let us know and we'll connect you with some help. And if you are in the area of Callum or Jefferson County here in Washington, a beautiful thing we call paradise, I know a real good guy, he's sitting off to my left, that can give you some help, and I'll be more than happy to refer you. So the point being is, recognize there may be a problem, take action to solve the problem, and then find somebody you can trust that you can partner. If you do those three things, you'll live a better life. And when you live a better life, you look back when you get older and you start building your legacy and say, you know, that was a turning point. On behalf of Jenny Marie Wellness, certainly Nate Maxwell, and of course all the fine folks at Papa and all the other networks that we use to be able to tell our message, we thank all of you, and we invite you to tune in again and catch up with Life's Journey with Dr. Ralph Smith. And if you have any ideas that you'd like other subjects covered, we're all open. You take care of yourself, take care of one another, and God bless.